The photographer was setting up his second tripod when my daughter leaned close to my ear and said it. "Mom, don't sit in the family photos. Sebastian's father's side has a lot of people, and we want the frame to feel, clean." She said it with a small smile, the kind she had practiced in front of mirrors since she was 12. Her hand rested lightly on my elbow, the way a hostess touches a guest she is about to redirect away from the wrong table. I was holding a wrapped present. A wooden train set I had ordered from a small shop in Maine 3 months earlier, hand-painted, with each car carved by a man who only made 20 sets a year. My grandson, Felix, was turning 4. He had asked me on FaceTime in August, "Grandma, can I have a train that's only mine?" And I had said yes before he finished the sentence. The wrapping was navy paper with little gold stars. I had wrapped it that morning at my kitchen table. I stood very still in the rented sunroom of the historic estate where my daughter Cassandra had insisted the party be held. 228 guests. A balloon arch in 3 shades of cream. A 4-tier cake under a glass dome. A photographer with 2 tripods. A videographer with a gimbal. And a woman with a clipboard who I gathered was a children's party coordinator, which was a profession I had not known existed until that morning. I had paid the deposit on the venue. $11,400. Cassandra had called me in July and said, "Mum, the venue we love needs a deposit by Friday, and we're a little tight this month. Could you front it? We'll pay you back at Christmas." I had wired the money on a Thursday. Now my daughter was telling me to stand to the side, while 228 other people had their picture taken. "The frame to feel clean," I repeated. "Mom, please don't make this weird. It's just for the formal shots. You can be in the candids." I looked past her shoulder. Across the sunroom, my son-in-law Brennan was laughing at something his mother had said. His mother was seated in the center of a velvet settee that had clearly been positioned for the photograph's center frame, with a small wooden riser tucked behind it for the children. Brennan's father was adjusting his tie. Brennan's sister was arranging her own 3 children in matching outfits I recognized from a Brooklyn boutique I had once been told. It was too aspirational for me to bother visiting. There was no chair for me. There had never been a chair for me. The settee held 5. I looked back at Cassandra. She was already drifting toward the photographer, her hand lifting from my elbow as if it had only landed there to make sure I would not drift toward the wrong place. I did not cry. My hands didn't tremble. I walked across the sunroom to where my grandson stood by a low table of fruit cups. He was wearing a small navy blazer and a bow tie that had been chosen for the photographs and would not survive the cake. His hair had been combed in a way that already looked uncomfortable. "Felix." He looked up. His face cracked into the kind of smile only small children produce. "Grandma." I knelt down, slowly, the way my knees required now. I held out the wrapped box. "This is from me, the train you asked for. Will you open it later, when it's just you?" "Right now," he said, already reaching. "Tonight, sweet pea, when it's quiet. Promise?" He nodded with the seriousness of a 4-year-old being trusted with something. He took the box in both arms. "Are you in the picture, Grandma?" "Not today, sweetheart, but you're in mine." I touched the small camera-shaped pin on my collar. He grinned. He didn't understand the metaphor, and he didn't have to. I kissed the top of his head. I stood up. I walked out of the sunroom, past the cream balloon arch, past the woman with the clipboard who said, "Are you all right, ma'am?" without looking up from her tablet. I crossed the marble lobby of the estate, and I sat down in a leather chair beside a tall window. I pulled out my phone. It was 2:14 p.m. on a Saturday. The cake would be cut at 4. I had 97 minutes. The first call I made was to a man named Silas Whitcomb. Silas had been my late husband Frederick's accountant for 26 years, and had been mine since Frederick died 6 years ago. Silas was 81 and answered his own phone on Saturdays because, as he had once told me. My wife is gone, my children are grown, and the only thing more boring than a Saturday afternoon is a Saturday afternoon without numbers to look at. He picked up on the third ring. Margaret. Silas. The 11,400 I wired to the Hartwell estate in July for Cassandra's venue deposit. Was that a gift or a loan? Silas was quiet for exactly 2 seconds. You and I had a conversation about that, Margaret. You said loan, document it, send her a note. I drew up the note. You sent it to her. She signed it and emailed it back on July 11th. Do you have the signed copy? I have everything. I'm a Whitcomb. We file. Silas, I am at the venue right now. I would like the loan called in, today, before 4 o'clock. There was another short silence. Then Silas, in his very dry voice, said, Margaret, are you safe? I am perfectly safe, Silas. I am sitting in a leather chair beside a window. I have just been told not to sit in the family photographs at my grandson's 4th birthday party. Ah, yes. Margaret, the venue contract. Whose name is it in? Cassandra's. But the deposit was wired from my account, with a notation referencing the loan agreement she signed. Then here is what we do. The deposit, technically, is hers. It sits with the venue under her contract. But the loan she signed is callable on demand with 30 days' notice. However, Silas's voice took on the small, sharp edge. It always did when he had spotted a door someone else had not noticed. The loan agreement included a clause, I insisted. On. Standard for family loans. It says the loan accelerates and becomes immediately due if the borrower commits any act of bad faith toward the lender. Define bad faith. In the document I drafted, it is defined as any conduct, action, or public statement by the borrower that materially disrespects the lender or her standing within the family. I wrote it broadly on purpose, Margaret. I had a feeling. I closed my eyes. Silas, you wrote that into a family loan agreement. Margaret, I have been an accountant for 53 years. I have seen every variation of how children treat parents who lend them money. I write in clauses. Will it hold up? It will not need to hold up in court. It will only need to hold up over the phone when I call her this afternoon and inform her that the loan has accelerated and she has until Monday at 5 p.m. to wire $11,400 to your account or face a civil filing on Tuesday morning. Make the call, Silas, from your office, today. Margaret, are you sure? I looked across the marble lobby. Through the open doors of the sunroom, I could see Cassandra arranging Brennan's nieces on the wooden riser. The photographer was lifting his camera. Brennan's mother was in the center of the settee. Felix was being placed on her lap. Silas, I am sure. Consider it called. The second call I made was to a woman named Iris Dempsey. Iris was the manager of the Hartwell estate. We had spoken twice in July when I wired the deposit. She had called me, then Mrs. Holloway, and had been unfailingly polite. She picked up on the second ring. Iris, it's Margaret Holloway. I am in your lobby right now. Mrs. Holloway. Yes, hello. Is everything all right with the event? Iris, I need to ask you a question, and I need you to answer me honestly. The $11,400 deposit I wired in July. Under what conditions can it be refunded? A small pause. Mrs. Holloway, the deposit is non-refundable as a standard rule. But it's also non-transferable, and the contract is in your daughter's name. So, technically, if your daughter were to release the deposit back to you in writing, we could process a refund minus a small administrative fee. And if she doesn't release it, then it would be forfeited at the end of the event, as is standard. Iris, I would like to make a request. I would like you to come to my chair here in the lobby in 20 minutes. I would like you to bring 2 documents. The first is a loan acceleration notice from my accountant, which is currently being faxed to your office. The second is a release form, in case it becomes necessary. Mrs. Holloway. Iris. I am not making a scene. I am sitting quietly. I am simply asking you to be ready. I will be there in 20 minutes. I sat in the leather chair, and I let myself remember. Not everything. Just the moments I had been training myself not to look at directly for the last 12 years. Cassandra's wedding rehearsal in 2011, the seating arrangement at the rehearsal dinner. I had arrived to find that I was at table 4, behind a flower arrangement so tall I had to lean sideways to see the head table where my daughter sat. Brennan's mother had been at table 1. When I had mentioned it, gently, to Cassandra the next morning, she had said, "Mom, Brennan's mom paid for the rehearsal." It would have looked strange not to put her up front. I had said, of course. I had laughed. I had laughed. The Christmas of 2014, Cassandra and Brennan had hosted at their first apartment. I had brought a bûche de Noël. I had spent 2 days making. When I walked in, Brennan's mother was already in the kitchen, and Cassandra had said, "Mom, can you put your dessert in the fridge in the den? We've already laid out everything in here." The bûche de Noël had stayed in the back fridge. I learned at the end of the night that it had not been served. "We just had so much," Cassandra had said. The summer of 2017, Felix's older sister, Lavinia, had been born. I had flown to Seattle to help. Cassandra had told me at the airport, "Mum, Brennan's parents are staying at the house. There just isn't room. I booked you a hotel, it's very cute, only 12 minutes away." I had stayed in that hotel for 9 days. I had taken 2 buses each morning to hold my granddaughter for 2 hours, before being sent back so the real grandparents could have their afternoon. The Mother's Day brunch in 2022, where Brennan's mother was given a corsage and I was given a folded card that said, "Thanks for everything," in Cassandra's handwriting. Inside was a coupon for a teeth whitening service. "You have such a pretty smile, Mum. We thought it could pop more in pictures." The Easter dinner last year, where Cassandra had pulled me aside in the kitchen and said, "Mum, when Brennan's parents tell stories, can you not jump in with your own version? It muddies the water. Let them have their moment." I had nodded. I had said, of course, I had spent that entire dinner not telling a single story, not even when Brennan's father told one about Cassandra at age 6 and got the year wrong by 4 years and the location wrong by an entire state. I sat with the correction in my mouth and swallowed it like a small stone. I had been swallowing small stones for 12 years. There comes a moment when a woman runs out of room inside her own throat. Iris arrived at 2:43 with a leather folio. She was wearing a dark green dress and the kind of expression event managers wear when they have understood a situation without being told. She sat in the chair beside mine. "Mrs. Holloway, your accountant called me directly. He was very thorough. Silas is always thorough. He has informed me that the deposit was paid via a loan agreement which has been accelerated. He has provided documentation to that effect." "Yes. Under our contract, the deposit is held in your daughter's name. However, your accountant has filed what he calls a constructive notice of beneficial interest, asserting that the funds in our account were not gifted but loaned, and that the lender has withdrawn the loan. And our legal counsel, whom I called from the back office 5 minutes ago, has advised me that we can do one of 2 things. We can hold the deposit pending resolution between you and your daughter, in which case the event continues as planned. Or we can refund the deposit to its source, your account minus a 15% administrative fee, which would result in an immediate cancellation of all unpaid services for the remainder of the event." I looked at her. "Iris, what unpaid services remain?" "The cake service, the bar service for the second half, the clean-up crew, the photographer's contracted second hour, the string trio's final set, the dessert reception." She glanced at her tablet. "Approximately $7,000 of contracted services remain." And those were billed to whom? To your daughter's contract, which was secured by your deposit. So, if the deposit is withdrawn, the remaining services would either need to be paid in full immediately by your daughter or cancelled. I sat with that for a moment. I thought about Felix, about the train waiting for him in its navy paper, about a 4-year-old who would not understand any of this and did not need to. The cake, I knew, was already being lifted onto the rolling cart in the kitchen for its 4 o'clock entrance. Iris, may I make a specific request? Yes. Refund the deposit to my account, minus the fee. Cancel everything after the cake. Allow the cake to be served. Allow Felix to blow out his candles. Cancel the bar service that follows, the dessert reception, the string trio's last set, the photographer's second hour, and the clean-up gratuity. Iris's eyebrows lifted, just slightly. Mrs. Holloway, the clean-up is non-optional. Then bill it to the contract holder, not to me. She wrote on her tablet. Her pen moved with the small, precise sound of a woman who had once been told not to sit in family photographs herself, somewhere, by someone, and had remembered it. It will be done. When? The deposit will be wired to your account by close of business Monday. The service cancellations will take effect at 4:30 p.m. today, after the cake. Thank you, Iris. She stood. She paused. Mrs. Holloway, may I say something not as the event manager? Please. My mother died 11 years ago. She raised 4 of us alone. At my wedding, my husband's family arranged the photographs and forgot to call her name for the family photo. She stood in the corner and waited. I have never forgotten it. She died 8 months later, and I have a wedding album with no picture of her in it. I looked at her. Iris. Yes? Make sure the photographer takes a candid of Felix opening his cake. Send it to me directly. I will. She walked back toward her office, her green dress disappearing around the corner. I did not go back into the sunroom. I sat in the leather chair and I waited for 4 o'clock. At 3:51 p.m., I saw Cassandra cross the lobby with her phone pressed to her ear. Her face was the color of bone. She did not see me. She was speaking very fast in the half-whisper a woman uses when her in-laws are within earshot. Silas, what do you mean accelerated? What do you mean Monday? Mum can't just... She can't just... She turned a corner. I heard her voice rise, then drop, then go silent. At 3:58 p.m., she crossed back. She saw me this time. She stopped in the middle of the marble floor. The clipboard woman drifted past her, oblivious. Cassandra walked over to my chair. Slowly, carefully. The smile was gone now. Mom. Cassandra. What did you do? I looked up at her. My daughter. 41 years old. The baby I had labored, 19 hours to deliver in 1983. I called in alone. At my son's birthday party. At your son's birthday party? Yes. How could you? I tilted my head. Cassandra, how could I? She opened her mouth, closed it. It was just a photo, Mum. No, sweetheart, it was the 12th photo. She blinked. It was the rehearsal dinner, and the bûche de Noël, and the hotel in Seattle, and the corsage at brunch, and the small voice in your kitchen telling me not to muddy the water with my own daughter's stories. It was 12 years of being told, in small, careful sentences, where I belong in your life. Today the sentence was simply too short to hide inside. Mom. The cake is at 4. Felix will have his cake. I made sure of that. After the cake, the bar closes, the trio leaves, and the cleanup is on Brennan's contract. I will not be there. I have already said goodbye to your son. She stared at me. You're leaving. I am leaving. And the 11,000? You have until Monday at 5. Silas will send wire instructions. If you cannot pay, we will discuss a payment plan. I am not interested in destroying your finances, Cassandra. I am interested in being clear. Clear about what? That love is not the same thing as access. That I am your mother, whether or not I am in the photograph. And that I will no longer pay to be excluded from rooms I have already paid for. Her eyes filled. I watched the tears form. I did not move toward her. Mom, please, just come back in. Sit for the photo, we'll redo it. Cassandra. I do not want to sit for a photograph. I had to threaten a venue to be invited into. She stood there. The sunroom doors opened behind her. The string trio was beginning the cake song. Somewhere inside, a 4-year-old was being lifted onto a chair. Go to your son, Cassandra. He's about to blow out his candles. She went. I watched her cross the lobby. I watched the doors close behind her. I stood up. I picked up my coat from the chair beside mine. I walked out the front entrance of the Hartwell estate, past 2 valet attendants who nodded at me as if I were any other guest leaving early. I drove home. That evening at 6:52 p.m., my phone buzzed. A photograph from Iris. Felix in his navy blazer, his bow tie crooked, his face lit from below by 4 candles, his eyes squeezed shut mid-wish. The cream balloon arch behind him, the cake half blurred in the foreground. Underneath, a single line from Iris. He wished for a long time, Mrs. Holloway. I thought you should know. I sat at my kitchen table, and I looked at that photograph for a long time. I did not cry. Not exactly. My eyes were wet, but my hands were steady. I opened a small notebook. I had started keeping 6 years ago after Frederick died. The kind of notebook a widow keeps when she is teaching herself to live without someone she trusted to make sense of. Things. I wrote 1 line. They told me not to sit in the family photographs, so I took back the room they were taken in. Then I closed the notebook. I made a cup of black tea. I sat by my window, and I waited for the call I knew would come, eventually, from a 4-year-old asking if Grandma had liked the train. The call came 2 hours later. Felix had opened the box at home, alone, the way I had asked him to. His voice was small and bright through the phone. Grandma, it's perfect. It's the best train ever. Sweet pea. Grandma, why didn't you stay for cake? I closed my eyes. Because some grown-up things needed fixing, sweetheart. But Grandma is fine. Grandma is in her kitchen drinking tea, and she loves you very much. And she is so proud of you for being 4. Grandma, will you come next year, to my 5th? I held the phone close to my ear. Felix, I will come to every birthday you have for the rest of my life, but only through the front door. Do you understand? He was quiet for a moment. 4-year-olds understand more than we give them credit for. They just don't have words for it yet. Okay, Grandma. Okay, sweet pea. Now go put your train on the floor and make it go. Okay. He hung up. I sat at my window. The cardinal that had been visiting my feeder all autumn landed on the railing and looked at me through the glass for a long second before flying away. I lifted my tea. I slept the way a woman sleeps when she has finally stopped paying for the privilege of standing at the edge of her own family's photographs.